Hello, everybody. Welcome to this short film. I have finally got an advanced copy of my new book, The Cosmos in Stone, Sacred Geometry of a Master Mason. Now, in this film, I'm going to, well, first of all, just for those who haven't got much time, I'm just going to give a quick description of it. And for those who've got a bit longer, I'll then also look through the book, showing, just giving a brief description of each chapter. So for the quick review, I'm just going to put on my desk camera. So here is the book. Now I'll give some specifications of size and whatever shortly. It's quite a thick book. The retail price is £24.95. Various other outlets I've been looking at seem to be charging £26.95, but you can still get it for the pre-order price of £20 up until the end of February. Very good deal for what you get. There's over 400 images or diagrams in the book. And so here on the back is an image of me and a description of me and a description of the book. Now I'll just give a quick flick through just so you can see how well illustrated it is. There's many images. Right, I'll go into this in more detail in a second, but let me just get share my screen and just show a few slides for a second. Right, so how to pre-order the book. You may have already done this. You can write a short email to thecosmosinstone@gmail.com, and I can then give you information on how to pay the pre-order. Now, like I say, the pre-order price is going to be £20 until the end of February. That's when all the books turn up, and so that's when the books will be available and on sale. So that's when it will go up to the normal price. Now, you can get a copy of the book at that normal retail price from some shops, and you can get it from me directly for that price as well. Now, the book itself, it has 368 pages, and as you could see, it was in full color, over 400 photos and diagrams. It's 8.5 inches by 11. That's the size, and the weight for those who want to have it sent to them, as you can see, it's 1.8 kilos. So it comes under that 2 kilo limit where the price goes up. Now, an important thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that chapters 14 to 17 of the book are actually available as a free downloadable PDF, as opposed to being in the book, because the book would have been even bigger if I'd have included those chapters. It's another 75 pages, which has over 100 images in there as well. So that will be available on a website that I'm in the process of setting up. I haven't set it up yet, but that'll be tombreegeometry.com. And as I say, that will be available as a PDF. Right, if you've only got a minute or two to spare, then that's the quick review. But if you want to stay longer, and I'll show you the book in a bit more detail, I'll do that for about the next 10 minutes or so. So I'll go back to my desk camera. Now, all the usual things are at the front, contents, the foreword, which is written by my geometry teacher, Professor Keith Critchlow, the preface and the introduction. And that takes us to chapter 1, which is the Throne of Wisdom. Now, this first chapter sort of sets the scene, really, about the wisdom tradition that was particularly prominent in the 12th century, at the time that Gothic cathedrals started to be designed. Now, this chapter is essentially about wisdom and the number 7, and also the way in which that relates to the 7 liberal arts and the 7 planetary spheres, and the ascent of the soul through the 7 planetary spheres. Now, I'll just flick through each page of this one just to give you a sense of the images, and I won't do this with all the chapters, but I'll just go through this one so you can get a sense of how illustrated the book is and the images there are. A great deal. It's really well printed. The colours are absolutely fantastic. There's only sort of so much, I think, that comes through on this webcam, but it's really top quality and very good thick paper as well. Now that takes us to chapter 2, which is about the symbolism of the Book of Revelation and the heavenly Jerusalem. Now, the geometric symbolism that I go into in this is really to do with the cube. There's quite a long section about the symbolism of the cube as the center of the world. Now, I won't say any more than that, but this is chapter 2. So again, chapter 2 is sort of setting the scene. And the final section in chapter 2 is rather aptly considering what's about to happen in May this year. This one is about the symbolism of the coronation chair and the symbolism of circle and square and heaven and earth that you get with the coronation chair. Now, chapter 3 is about the Kingdom of Jerusalem and really the importance of the influence of the Kingdom of Jerusalem in the emergence of the Gothic style of architecture. So this is where it starts to move sort of in the direction of looking at Gothic cathedral architecture, which is, of course, the main study of the book. Now, that takes us to chapter 4, which starts to actually go into looking at cathedral designs and really the symbolism of cathedral designs. Now that is part 1. So part 1 sort of takes us through, I suppose, the climate of what was going on in the 12th century, sort of the intellectual climate. And then this part 2 goes into a lot more directly into the cosmological symbolism and use of geometry in cathedral design, with a particular emphasis upon Wells Cathedral, which is the main study of the book. Now it begins with, well, this is an image of Venus. This is an illumination by Christine de Pizan, and it's known as the influence of Venus. And so this is heavenly Venus, as it were. And Venus in Christianity is the morning star. And so there's a lot of symbolism concerning the morning star, which I go into in this chapter. Now, it's both the Virgin Mary and the risen Christ as the bright morning star. Now, chapter 6 carries on looking at the symbolism of the Virgin Mary, the morning star, and the rose. So that sort of takes a bit of a digression, sort of continuing what was in chapter 5. Now, then with chapter 7, it moves into the pyramid geometry. Now, this is really what got me started in my study of the cathedral, because I found this diagram here, which is one that was discovered by someone called John Michel in the early 1970s. So it's a really amazing diagram, amazingly concordant in its mathematics and geometry and its cosmology, because this circle is the Earth in relation to this one, which is the moon. And this is a pyramid triangle. So in this chapter, I talk a lot about pyramid geometry in a grounded way, I might add, because obviously the whole subject of the Great Pyramid has become a bit ungrounded in more recent years. But this is looking really at the mathematics and the geometry and the cosmology. This is John Michel, who's the one who found that diagram. He somehow worked it out, goodness knows how. But it seems to have been known in the ancient world and the medieval world, and that's really one of the main subjects of this book. So that's chapter 7. Chapter 8 is then actually looking at the pyramid geometry in the design of Wells Cathedral. So I'll just leave that one. That's one that you can look at when you have the book. Now, chapter 9 is about the symbolism of the moon and the chapter house, because in the 3 cathedrals where John Michel's diagram is used, it's always the chapter house on the north side of the building that is the moon. So there's quite a lot about the symbolism of the moon and the way in which that comes into the designs of these 3 cathedrals, Wells, York, and Southwell. Now, chapter 10 takes us away from the cathedral and to the bishop's palace. And the significant thing about the bishop's palace is that there is actually a pyramid triangle built in stone. Now, I won't say too much about it, but just to say you can't see it, or the medieval human eye wouldn't have been able to have seen it, but we can see it with the use of aviation or satellite technology. So it's something that would have been hidden in the medieval world, but which is visible now. And so that is looking at that particular form, which is in the bishop's palace, just to the south of the cathedral. Now, chapter 11 is starting to look at the symbolism really of the cathedral nave and how it symbolises planet Earth, or you could say the earthly beginning of the ascent eastwards through the cathedral. Now, this one has quite a lot about St Andrew's saltire, because Wells Cathedral is dedicated to St Andrew, so that's all a part of what seems to be the seasonal symbolism that's used in the cathedral. So that's part two. Now, part three goes into the real nitty-gritty of the arithmetic that underlies all of the geometry and the cosmology. Now, most of this part is what I've put online. Chapters 14 to 17 are the online ones. So if you're a real enthusiast and you're very into number, then you can download that PDF. But even if you're not, or even if you're a bit sort of afraid of number, I would give it a try, because it's not that difficult. It's all GCSE level mathematics, or probably even less than that. But you just need to commit yourself to quite a lot of numbers and sort of live with it for a while. Now, I've put the first two chapters from this part in just to introduce you really to the arithmetical aspects of the design, and the whole musical ratio aspect of the design is also in this section. So chapter 12 introduces the measurement units and talks about their musical relationships. Then chapter 13 actually starts to look at the way in which the 3-foot units and the 1 cubit that are used throughout the building, how they're used, first of all, in the nave, which is this image of planet Earth. So that is chapter 13. And then when you get to page 240, you now have 9 unnumbered pages. And this, as you can see, is giving information about chapters 14 to 17 and how they're online and how they're downloadable from tombreegeometry.com. I haven't set that website up yet, but it's going to be up and going by the time the book is available. Now, the thing about these 4 chapters is they are listed in the contents, and their page numbering actually works according to, well, if they actually were in this book. So 240 is the end of that previous chapter, but the next chapter 14, would actually begin with page 241, which is the page numbering on the PDF. Now, here we have this first of the 9 unnumbered pages, and now there's 4 double-page spreads, which just give a selection of diagrams in each chapter. So here are some of the diagrams that are in chapter 14, and here are some of the diagrams in chapter 15, and chapter 16, and chapter 17. Now, this really was done to make the production price of the book cheaper, and the book would have been huge and quite heavy if I'd have put those 75 pages in. So I thought it would be better as a downloadable PDF. One day I may print the whole thing all as one book, but not for now. So having gone from 240, we're now at page 316. So those 75 pages in between are the downloadable PDF. But this page 316 brings us on to part 4. And this section, the final part, goes into the symbolism of ascent and initiation, and how the cathedral design does appear to embody this kind of symbolism, particularly the one at Wells. Now, it starts off with this chapter, The Christian Roots of Freemasonic Symbolism, because the ground plan of Wells Cathedral does actually have the same cosmological symbolic layout as a Freemason lodge room. So I won't say any more than that, but that's what chapter 18 is looking at. Now, chapter 19, the middle path of initiation. This is really about the symbolism of the middle path, and it begins here with these quotes from various different philosophers and mystics from different religious traditions, all talking about the middle path, because it is really this universal principle. And that then is expanded upon in the first section, which is really just a long list of the middle path and lots of different religious and philosophical ideas the world over. Now, then there's a very long section about symbolism of, well, it's really the symbolism of Venus, planet Venus, in the sense of the descent into the underworld and the ascent into heaven, and how this shows itself in Christianity through the symbolic storyline of Lucifer, the fallen angel, and then the story of Christ going into the underworld and then rising into heaven. They both naturally, I suppose, are symbolized by the movements of planet Venus. So this is part of a perennial cosmological symbolism that seems to come into Christianity, or is at least recognized within medieval Christianity. Now, chapter 20 looks, as you can see with the title, it looks at various leftover traces that we can see within, mainly really within arts and literature, of initiation, cosmic initiation symbolism in medieval Christianity. So I won't say more than that. It sort of goes around. I mean, it looks a lot particularly at Dante's Divine Comedy, which is probably the best example. But there's various different subjects that it covers. One of my favorite sections in this one actually is the pentagram of Solomon and Gawain. I'll leave that for you to read. Now, the final chapter is really pulling together the various sections that needed to be in the book, which didn't quite fit in the other chapters. So there's just about 4 or 5 sections in this final chapter here to finish off. This is a picture of the Holy Well of St Andrew in the Bishop's Palace area, looking across at the Lady Chapel of the Cathedral. Now, beyond chapter 21, there's an epilogue. So the final thing after 21 is a short epilogue. And then all of the usual stuff at the back, and the acknowledgements are the first, then the image credits, and then finally the index, which took me ages to put together, and it was very painful, but I couldn't not put one in. So I always use people's indexes when I read their books, but it's quite a comprehensive index, so you'll be able to look all sorts of things up. So there it is. Now I'll just put the slides back on again. I'll give you that image that I showed you a little earlier. So here are those details again. Now, the final thing that I want to show is some of the talks, book launch talks that I'm going to be doing in the next few months. Now, as you can see, the first one is on February the 18th for the Centre for Myth, Cosmology and the Sacred. That's online, so you can look up that talk on their website. The next one on March the 15th for the Scientific and Medical Network. That's also online, details on their website. Now, the first in-person one will be on March the 18th, and that's for the Temenos Academy, and that will be in London at the Art Workers Guild in Queen Square. That's just close to Russell Square, King's Cross area. Now, as you can see, the doors will open at 3:45 and we'll begin at 4:15 and finish at 7. So I'll give a talk and we'll have conversation and book signing and a bit of a get-together. Now then, after that, the next in-person one will be here in Wales at the Cathedral in the Lady Chapel, I'm very happy to say. So that will happen on Sunday, March the 26th. If you want to come down to Wales to visit for a weekend, that would be a good opportunity, and come to the book launch on Sunday. It'll be the Cathedral liturgy. The service will finish at 11:30, and after that they have coffee in the North Transept, and then at midday up in the Lady Chapel up at the East End, that'll be where the book launch takes place for about an hour. Now, I'll probably also be running a course that weekend about cosmology patterns, so I'll also be sending details about that soon enough. The course will be on March the 24th, 25th and 26th, so this book launch will coincide with that. Now then, the last book launch talk will be April the 15th, and that's another online one for the Finchley Trust, so you can look up details on their website for that one. So that's it. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching, and do please buy the book, and hopefully I'll see you at some point soon. Bye for now.